Hello and welcome to Wild Vittles. So I have a really different episode this time, and I'm really excited to be able to have a panel discussion of a group of outdoorsmen who I truly respect. They're my friends, and I count myself lucky to say that they're my friends. And you might say, Chris, this is kind of lame. You got just some random dudes. Well, by the end of this, you're going to recognize that each of these gentlemen has a significant amount of contribution from a perspective of their focus on conservation. They're hunting in and out of the state. They're also all good cooks. And so I think together we'll learn quite a bit. So with that, I want to welcome my three guests here, and I'm going to ask that they just do a quick introduction.
Okay, Joel Smith, bow hunter, elk hunter, saltwater angler, father, Rhodesian Ridgeback dad. Also chair of the Texas chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
Thank you for your contribution on conservation. Excellent.
And a Scorpio.
And a Scorpio.
And a Scorpio.
Who enjoys
long walks on the beach. Slam poetry.
Nice. James?
I'm James Jubran, educator, children's book writer, a woodsman, a wood crafter, hunter, angler, father, debutante, all things amazing.
And as I said in the first pass, a 2% conservation contributor.
Yep.
Which I think is awesome. Serial entrepreneur. I'm really impressed with kind of all the things that you've got, all the balls that you're juggling in the air, and hosts a lot of wild game dinners. As I mentioned before, I have not had a chance to attend one. You have invited me, but I had a conflict. And 10 course. He had to correct me. I thought it was a 6 course. And he's like, no, 10 course.
In all fairness, I don't know if I'll do the 10 course again.
I bet that was tough.
It was a challenge.
Yeah, I think you need a staff for 10 course.
I could definitely use a staff.
Yeah, you need Judson.
So. Judson would help.
Yeah,
He worked a lot.
And Judson, introduce yourself.
Judson Brown. I am a hunter, fisherman, father. I am the secretary for Texas Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and as well.
And a damn good wild game cook, and somebody that I count as quite accomplished in that area. And like I was saying earlier, kind of first on my list to ask questions. We're always trading stuff like random things. Like you sent me a text about where there's a food processing sausage making store. I didn't even know there was such a thing. And
it's badass too.
So a unique thing, I think, amongst us. So I want to jump into the conversation. And so, it'll be kind of a free for all. I've already told the fellas that, I'm going to check mark the explicit on there so that you're going to get the raw, unfiltered version of discussion. And so starting with a bit of a weighty topic, I'd be interested in what you guys think about when you think about why do you hunt? We do it for fun, but it's also kind of a serious subject. Why do you hunt, and how does that relate to food?
I was talking about a post I saw on Instagram from Blood Origins asking that question, and I was thinking to myself, when I was younger, I would just kill anything. Didn't matter. I was just so excited. Like a lot of people are when they started hunting. I still do that. I just love stacking meat in my freezer. I take great pride in just having a freezer just packed full of meat. I just absolutely, to the point where I feel guilty if I eat the good cuts. I want to save them because they're good, right? And they're the best cuts. But I love that aspect of it. I honestly haven't bought more than one chicken and probably a rack of ribs in the last 4 years.
What are you saving the good cuts for? Just an occasion like your dinners?
I still have them in there.
So you're a hoarder is what you're saying.
It's collecting.
Yeah.
Collecting and waiting for the right moment.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
For me, it's hunting and fishing is a way to get outside and get some sun, run around in the woods. The meat and all of that, I think, is just kind of a nice bonus.
Right.
I am one of those people I could fish and grind it out all day long on the coast and end up sunburned and windburned and have 2 fish in the box, and it doesn't burn me up that bad like it does some of my friends. It's just being out there and then, if we get a few trout fillets or go run around in the woods for a week and you end up with a deer or something to take home. Yeah. That's great. But I certainly enjoy eating it all.
I think you're more easygoing than most, though. Is it like that is a characteristic I would attribute it to you. I mean, it's like there's been a lot of hunts where I'm like, God, this sucks. And then 5 minutes later, you're like, you've caught 10 fish where the deer steps out and all of a sudden a bad trip goes into an existentially fantastic trip, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could do 180 and go to Joel, who does burn it up when.
You may have a reputation for being a little grumpy at times.
Expletives are part of the game when I'm out in the outdoors. I was just thinking, I grew up, fishing the coast, like Aransas Pass, Rockport with my grandfather, flounder gigging, this and that, doing fish fries. And so that's was sort of a part of my childhood growing up. And then I veered away from it. And when I, late 20s, right around the time I turned 30, I bought my first deer rifle and had the opportunity to go to a buddy's ranch and shoot a deer for the first time and process that deer and ate that meat. And it sort of started a passion for removing the grocery store from the equation of the protein in my life. And that just sort of, the deeper I've gotten into it, the more that's expanded to like kayak fishing and, going out west elk hunting and this and that. But ultimately the goal for me has been from that very beginning to just like remove that like commercial agriculture protein out of my life and out of my family's life. And what comes along with that is being out in nature, getting into the outdoors, having the opportunity to you're out in the woods or you're out on the water before the sun comes up, and you get to sort of see the world wake up. And there's a huge like mental health component
Absolutely.
for me from that standpoint. Now, once I start dragging those weedless hooks through the oysters and they start getting stuck a couple times, or you walk away from camp without your release on your wrist and blow an opportunity to shoot an elk.
As you try to draw on a cow elk.
That's right. That's right.
I completely agree about the going out in nature. And, for me, it's the way I've kind of tried to package it is food, fun, and adventure. I think there are places that I go that I would never go if I weren't hunting. And so, I've kind of wondered, do you need the hunt? I don't think I would put myself in those locations. I don't think I would see the situation like you're talking about, seeing the woods wake up, hearing the things that you hear, to the point that I almost feel sorry for people that don't hunt and fish because there's a world out there that they don't even know exists.
I try to explain that to my students all the time.
Yeah.
They don't get it. Of course they don't. No one does. But do you find yourselves, like when y'all have like meat in the freezer, do you find yourselves able to enjoy being out there even more without that stress on you? Because I get that a lot. Like when I have like an elk in the freezer and a couple deer in the freezer, it's like, okay, now I can come out here. Cool if I can get more meat. I want to, but I'm able to focus on those things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
A lot more.
I do put pressure on myself. Like I go back to Oklahoma where I'm from, and there you can take 6 deer in total, which I don't shoot 6 deer, I shoot 2. But I often kid that I want to get kind of one in the freezer, and then the second hunt I'm enjoying tremendously more because I'm not worried about it. I'm not, because you always have this, at least I do, limited amount of time. I've had to travel great distance. It's time away from my family, and you've only got so many opportunities. Once you've already got that one, or let's say that I had an elk hunt and I'm successful in the elk hunt, I find that my whitetail hunts are more fun because there's no pressure on me, right? Because just like Joel was saying, I like to have enough meat in the freezer to kind of sustain over the year. And it's not that, are we going to starve? God, no. But I enjoy the cooking, and I want that raw material for my cooking activities, right?
I would have said no until you described it like that, but that's always the way I feel in October and November.
Yeah.
I always want to get that doe on the ground early on, but I am not above going and getting a ribeye from the grocery store.
Oh, no.
Or
no.
some little chicken. So I like it all.
I do too.
the meat's kind of just a fun bonus.
I have a farming and ranching background, so I've got nothing against commercial agricultural. There is there's some things in there that people aren't happy with, like growth hormones and things like that. And I do agree, that there's something to be said for procuring your own food that way, and but seeing it all the way through the process, I think is just pretty cool. It's good. It's good. So kind of carrying on that same type of topic as we kind of go from the why to, let's say, jumping into kind of the land of your freezer. I know that each of you, personally, I know that each of you take it very you have a high level of responsibility on utilizing your wild game. How do you go about approaching this? I mean, do you is it just kind of organic? Is it, do you have a spreadsheet, or do you, just plan it out? And I expect, given this table, because you're each very different people, I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I have no method to it at all. I honestly, if I want ground, I go dig through and find something ground, and hopefully it's what I'm looking for. But
I would challenge you, though. I bet you have an awareness of what you have, though.
I have a really good awareness of what I have. I just don't know exactly necessarily where in one of the freezers that it is.
Right. And you encountered a very unfortunate, I think all of us, nightmare scenario where you had a freezer crap out on you.
Yeah. And again, that was primarily that first bull elk I shot was in there, and both tenderloins that were still in there, most of the back straps.
Pain.
I had eaten most of the ground though.
Yeah, you were saving those tenderloins.
Saving the good stuff.
Man,
Can't take it with you.
There's a life lesson there.
Trust me, I tell myself that, and I try to convince myself to eat. We'll have to thaw a tenderloin out here.
I think that's like one thing that it has happened to me a few times before I really started getting into hunting more. But I've lost a few freezers, and it's always that GFCI, and it's your one outlet in the garage, and everybody has.
Yep.
So nothing. Can't say enough about having like a light bulb, or even they have some auto dialers and stuff like that will help.
They got the fancy freezers now that will like send an alert to your phone.
I don't have that.
No, I don't either.
I don't either, but
Yeah.
I should.
Yeah. I would assume, Judson, like all things in your life, that you don't necessarily plan it. It's just like it kind of happens.
What's that mean? I used to use a chest freezer for most of my freezer storage, and I always had that issue where like you go through and you're trying to find something, it's in there, and you get to the bottom and it's like, what, we're 2024 now, and you find like steaks from 2017. They were all wrapped up, and so we got a big upright freezer, which makes it a lot more manageable. And I even get these plastic totes where I put certain things in it, so you can pull out slide out a whole thing.
Yeah,
and
that's
like,
nice.
Here's where the fish is, and here's where steaks and roasts are.
Right.
Frozen mullet and chicken necks for fishing. Keep the bait in the same freezer. And so that helps a lot. But other than that, I try to do the first in, first out.
Yeah.
Just put all the old stuff to the front.
Yep.
It doesn't always work. I found a couple snapper fillets that were quite aged. Once we cut out some of the red meat and some of the, filleted off the skin.
No worries.
Got much better, but we do make sure, even if it's getting old, we try to eat it all.
It's all trial and error, man. And Joel, you're the opposite end of the extreme from the perspective of everything must be in its place for you, is my perception.
I'll say my freezer stays organized, and that is, it didn't used to be that way, but during the COVID times, John Dudley did a little social media sort of like organization week, and one of the challenges that you had to do was like get your freezer organized, put everything in a sort of like get everything organized into different locations, species, whatever the case may be. And so from that point forward, I have been pretty organized, where I've got sort of like the older stuff stays on the top so that it's it's like
readily accessible.
Yeah.
And then
I will have I do.
Okay.
And so I've got, I'm basically using shipping boxes, and on the bottom I have a shipping box that's just full of like the brand new ground meat, essentially.
Nice. Yep.
On the top is something like steaks, roasts, more ground meat, whatever the case may be, and then there's a section for the migratory birds. But for me, I would say in terms of planning, it sort of changes season to season, because like in during duck season, especially one that was as disappointing as this year.
Yeah, this was sad.
I almost didn't freeze any duck because I was just eating it as I was going.
Yeah. Which I think is a good thing, actually. I mean, it's probably the best to enjoy it near term, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you can eat it before it freezes, great.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was a sad duck year.
And I've been trying to put my finger on, like, was it just that the last 2 or 3 years were that much better and this was just an average year,
Yeah.
or was it really that bad? But
I think it's both.
a little bit of both. A little bit of both.
It has been, of course, the reason that I duck hunt is because of Joel. Joel took me out, and Judson has taught me a lot too. So duck hunting is still a recent thing for me. So I'm kind of got this recency bias of, well, the previous 2 years were awesome. So what the heck? Because they were really great.
They were.
And this one was just, But I don't think we're alone. I think, across the United States, I think everybody had a tough year.
Yeah, the Ducks Unlimited guys, I think we're talking about El Nino being a factor. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard
Just
that.
wasn't good. That's what I know.
That means the boy.
The boy. Yeah. The Nino.
Yeah.
The old Chris Farley sketch.
And so as we sit here, I'm looking at a beautiful bear rug on the wall that James took in Montana, correct?
Yeah, that was Montana. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It must be tough to have so many experiences you can't sort out which one. Was that Montana? Or was that Idaho?
That's the only bear I've ever shot. So.
And Judson here took also a black bear. His rug is still out.
It was a monster.
I don't know. Have you seen some of the pictures that people have come out this year with bears?
Oh, I saw
It's not those.
a 700 pounder.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, it's something that I know nothing about is bears, and I want to do a bear hunt, but it's not in the cards for me near term. Help me know, as you've kind of gotten into this, have you been processing them differently than, because I'm used to deer and elk or wild pigs, and then what challenges have you encountered or surprised about when you cooked it?
I didn't process it any differently. I didn't grind any, but I do plan. I have 12 pounds that's like waiting to get the grinder out to make some summer sausage. So that'll be something I do with that.
Yeah.
But what I think was most surprising for me is how much my family and everybody that has it likes it.
Yeah.
They don't even like. You always get gripes on different animals about it. It's gamey or what's that kind of off flavor. But anybody I've fed it to, they want more.
Yeah.
It's so I would kind of even put bear almost beefy in kind of a texture and
Really?
taste, and
Very much
it's
so.
very, very good. Yeah.
I was expecting more of a pork or something like that.
No.
So,
It's actually so close to beef. I took I crock potted a whole roast and pulled it like a pulled beef sandwich, chopped beef sandwich. Mm-hmm. I took it to work. Now keep in mind, I work in the city of Houston. Mm-hmm. Okay, these people don't really walk off of cement hardly ever, and they all knew. All my coworkers knew exactly what it was, and all but 2 of them tasted it, and they all liked it. I was blown away.
That's pretty impressive too, because bears can tend to be kind of an emotional animal for some people, and so
I've introduced
impressive.
enough game to them
Yeah.
at work where they know that what I bring is going to be good. Then if it's bad, I'm not going to bring it to work.
I was going to say, I think that speaks volumes of you and the relationship you have with your coworkers, and they realize
They really fear me. Is that what you're trying to say?
know that you probably do it with respect, right?
Oh,
And
for
that,
sure, yeah.
That's cool.
I guess I did do. This was my first experience trying to can meat. was
Really?
with the bear.
Like a pressure canner?
Yeah, with the pressure canner.
How'd that go?
It went well.
Yeah?
I'm going to do a lot more pressure canning. It's kind of fun to just look at your jars of meat sitting on the counter and just know that you just go crack one open. And then that's if you have trouble planning ahead,
Yeah.
that's a really handy one because you pressure can it. It
Yep.
takes a couple hours to do all of that.
Yeah.
But you get home from work, you need to make a quick meal, you pop it off, put it in a skillet, and you can make tacos out of it. You can do stew real easily.
So you got cubes?
Sandwiches,
It's
spaghetti.
cubes, yeah.
Yeah.
It's it smells like stew, basically, yeah.
So raw cubed meat.
You can do it raw.
Or
I
do you cook
browned
it
it first.
You browned it. Okay, I
Yeah.
bet that's probably better.
I don't know. I don't have the opposite to compare against. So
control of one.
That's
I wanted
actually
all
a
of
really
the,
good idea. I haven't thought about that. Getting that extra like flavor from the browning process.
Yeah.
Wow, Judd.
I overthink things
See,
sometimes.
I'm
So I was like,
impressed.
I looked at
I
him. I'm
told
like,
you.
what do I want to do? Do I want to do
I think he's one of the best
wall.
wild game cooks I know, and that's not taking anything away from you because I know you're quite accomplished. All you guys cook quite well, but he's kind of next level on some of these things. You know,
You don't have to preface that to hurt my feelings. Just, I'm okay.
I should have brought jars of bear.
Yeah.
I should
I
have
have one right.
How you doing?
I have one.
do you have
gave me.
any jars of bear grease?
I don't.
I
That was a pretty lean bear.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It was a spring bear.
it's a spring bear, and I got it right before sunset. Mm-hmm. And so
the sunset is making it lean.
no, it was making it like we're done quartering the animals, skinning it, packing it in bags, and making these trips. And it's like 2:00, and we're like, do we go back for another trip for trim? And
Honestly, like if we would have stayed there and pulled every little ounce of fat out there, we probably would have got less than 2 pounds of fat anyway.
yeah, I would think so.
There was nothing on
Not a
there,
lot on there.
and he was still over 300 pounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's and did you get the age back on him yet?
Not yet.
Yeah.
I've got the sheet of paper at my desk. It's got the phone number. It's got which numbers to hit on the menu.
So
I can
you
get
do
there
something
faster.
to do it. So,
They pull a tooth.
no, what I mean is, you call them to look it up, or they.
I call them and they'll pull the record.
I just
for me.
assumed it would be like they'll send you an email or something.
No.
Yeah.
They said it would take like 8 or 10 months.
Okay.
So
Any side bets on the age? You know, based on how old did you think
I
he was,
wouldn't even
James?
know.
I'm thinking probably around the 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Ready to get all that stuff back.
How old was yours, James?
I have no idea.
They don't have an aging requirement there.
No, but the taxidermist, when we brought him in, he said that for a sow, that was a big sow.
Yeah.
For that area.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Mature.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wish in the folks that are on YouTube, you might be able to see it in the corner, but it's a luxurious, like great coat on that one. And then they were telling me that Judson's is even better. So
It's beautiful.
Well, I didn't say
Beautiful
that.
jet black. Jet black, long hair,
yeah.
big old pads.
Yeah.
Big old pads.
That
Yeah.
was a pretty bear.
And when you did the skinning, how did you do the paws? That seems like there'd be a delicate piece.
It is a delicate piece.
I bet.
And we give that to people who know what they're doing.
So the taxidermist
Go
did
right
that,
up
huh?
to the paw. And
Okay.
Left it there.
Yeah, because I could see you screwing that. I could screw that up
I could screw that up really well.
really quick. Really quick.
Yeah.
No.
It was a fun hunt, though. It
Yeah.
walked right by us at like 30, 40 yards.
It was, yeah. Well, we were, it was kind of funny because we found scat, we found some other sign. We thought that we were in a place where we would find a bear, and we sat there for 7 or 8 hours,
At least.
ate dinner on the side of the mountain, and we're like kind of sitting looking at maps trying to figure out where we might hunt tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then like, well, what about this? What about this? And I look over and there's a bear coming right by us down the mountain. I was like, that was a bear. So it's like everything we thought would work was pretty much spot on, except that we expected the bear to be on the mountain in front of us,
yeah.
not
We got our
sneaking up on
binoculars
us.
out, our
Yeah.
tripods out, looking a mile or two away. Like, okay, let's find a bear.
Yeah.
So the bear had incredibly bad luck. It came right up to your doorstep.
But we did the wind right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So maybe it's James because, this was an unusual successful bear hunt. Why don't you say a little bit about your successful bear hunt and the circumstances around that?
That was a fun hunt. I was with my buddy. His name is Ben, and it was like day 3 or 4 of our hunt. We were walking down this trail, and he had to stop and take a crap. So I said, all right, I'll give you some privacy. So I walked around the corner, and boom, there's a bear. It just happened like that. He's like, did I hear a gunshot? I'm like, yep. Wipe your ass and come on over here.
So again, James is extremely lucky. I think. I mean, I think there are people that beat the odds, and James is one of them. So anytime
it
you
every
want
day.
anytime you want to do a party application, I'm there.
Let's do it.
I don't think Judson will party apply with me anymore because I rode his
My
points.
1 point.
Hey, you got us in. You got us into a Texas archery hunt.
Oh, it was a lot of fun too.
It was. We didn't get anything, but it was a fun hunt.
Yeah, and we saw animals.
Yeah.
So I don't think we had one hunt where we didn't.
No,
But,
I saw deer every time.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't an easy hunt, but
Oh my God, no.
it was a lot of fun.
A lot
yeah.
of adventure too. We found random deer stands left out there. We got checked, I think, 3 different times by 2 or 3 different
Fish and Wildlife
agencies.
guys, yeah.
We had U.S. Fish and Wildlife check us, state check us, and there may have been a sheriff come by. I forget.
Well, I remember too. My hopes went way down when we were out either that first day or we doing a scouting trip, and those guys were out running dogs. I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
So I think that area probably got a little bit of a run by some hog hunters, maybe
Yeah.
when they probably weren't supposed to be out there.
Well, Joel loves dog hunters when he's elk hunting, especially.
Yeah, yeah. If not for dog hunters and Chris, I could potentially be 5 for 5. Definitely 4 for 5 because the one year I walked away from camp without my release on my wrist and then heard some elky sounds down in the bottom and ranged a tree, and a nice big cow elk came right up to the tree. So I'm like 30 yards, and I go to pull back, and I'm like, oh wait, my release is in my pocket.
Oh God.
I
And
feel
then
like
the other time, I'm sitting in some brush, and I hear a giant herd of elk coming. There's a bull screaming. He's pushing the cows. You can hear all the cows and the calves just meow, 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 just talking. And then we hear some dogs. I mean, way off in the distance. And then they get a little closer, and a little closer, and a little closer, and it ends up that they push the elk off. And then the long story short on that is that I chased those elk for 10 miles. And every time I got into like the bedroom, into shooting range where I didn't have a shot or couldn't see him or whatever, the bull would scream. And then I would hear this bugle from back behind me scream over the top of him. And then he would push all of his cows off again. And then I would catch up to him again. This happened 4 or 5 times. And about the 5th time, I realized that it was Chris. Every time the bull would bugle, Chris would hit him with a bugle, and he'd be like, I'm out of here.
that day I felt like Jason Phelps.
So awesome.
I was playing the flute, man. I was like, because like you said, there was this bull. He had his harem, and we were kind of spread out. And I knew Joel was on him, and I kind of was close. And I called it the first time, and he answered back. What I didn't realize is he's like hauling ass every time I do that. And then I went kind of looking elsewhere, and I was beat up on a ridge, and I'd hear that bull call, and I was like, well, I'll just give him a call back. And I did that. I had to be 6 or 7 times. So when he came back to camp, he was like, you.
I'm sure he was.
I think I hiked 12 miles that day,
Yeah.
chasing those elk.
But Joel, if you hadn't seen the elk, I would have suggested that you guys were just calling back and forth at each other.
No, it was a real bull. It was a neat place to hunt. But no, since then I have decided that I need to call less. So, as we did in our last hunt, actually. Well, let me switch on bears unless you have any other wisdom, because if you do have some tips on cooking bear, I do want to know them.
I think every time I've cooked it, I've stuck it in the crock pot.
Yeah.
And I've either eaten it out of there or I've taken it from there and turned it into something else.
Mainly because you want to make sure you get to the temp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. So
it's pretty tough. It can be tough. So
I didn't realize that.
yeah, I've had a couple bites from like back straps and stuff when I was at camp that were pretty tender. But then it just made me worry: was I not cooking it enough? And then
We thought you were gonna have a Steve Ranella do over.
I don't need that kind of trouble, so I just stick it on the crock pot and then
Yeah.
turn it into whatever I want to after
Yeah.
that.
That reminds me on the canned meat. Are you taking those cubes from anywhere in particular that you're
I
putting
think
in
it
the
was.
meat?
I think it was all shoulders for the most
Okay.
part, because I think I roasted most of the hams.
Okay.
Yeah, and then trim. Yeah, that's a good question.
You have a perplexed look on your face, like, where did I
Well,
get those from?
The reality is that I do a lot of roasts,
Yeah.
and then I end up with trim that goes into a grind pile.
Yeah.
But sometimes if I get stew meat, I have to go find good whole muscle cuts to get like those
Yeah.
cubes that I like.
Yeah,
'Cause I don't do small chunks of stuff for stew meat, so I try to get that like the 1 inch cube.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for, after everything's deboned, where are those good
big
muscle
chunks.
groups that I can kind of cube out like that?
So Judson and I are kind of like the opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to roasts and ground, I think. So we've had some exchanges on text before about this because I was like shooting pictures and sending him. He's like, "Why are you grinding all those good roasts?" I'm like, "Dude, that's how I eat my meat," you know. So you were kind of ground shaming me, but that's okay.
No, there's nothing wrong with ground.
It's so convenient to have ground.
It just is.
Well, so that's one of the things in our house is if it's not ground, my wife's not cooking it for the most part. So she's not going to take it down a loin roast or
Right.
she'll do some chili and stuff like that with stew meat. And
It's just the
cube up
time
some
and
roasts.
defrosting for me.
Yeah.
It's like, the commitment. You could the pre-planning.
Yeah. You need 3 days. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you guys fall on that? Like roast, ground?
I like to have a good mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am in my current stage of life with a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old. I do a lot of ground meat,
Yeah.
but also it kind of depends on what animals are in the freezer.
That is
Already.
true. And what you got in your inventory.
Because the elk that I shot this year, the back legs I cut into mostly steaks and a couple and some roasts, but the front legs I ground all of it. And then so when it got to deer season, I shot a deer early in the season, and I ground the entire thing, aside from the back straps and the tenders.
Yeah.
Just because
It's
I already had 100 pounds of like steaks and
Right.
roasts from the elk, and it was like, I'm gonna burn through. I'm
Yeah.
using a pound or 2 or 3 of ground elk every week,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
so I'm gonna run out eventually before
Right.
we get to September again and have another opportunity to fill the freezer. So
Yep.
why not just put a ton more ground meat in the freezer, because that's what we're using a lot of these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. While I'm on ground, quick poll: fat added? No fat?
20%
Depends on the animal.
What kind in your 20
pork fat.
pork?
Yeah. Just in pure fat.
Yeah,
I know
non
some people will mix like pork butt, like a
Right.
fatty cut.
I tried some bacon ends this year. It's still kind of got the jury out on that one. It's
I haven't done it with game,
Yeah.
but I've done like burgers with bacon ends mixed
Yeah.
in. It's
not a
different.
fan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I don't know that I'll do it again. James, what did you say you do? Depends.
Yeah. So right. Let's see. Last year when I went to that state park that we won't mention, and
Half the internet wants to know where you went.
and pulled all those 5 animals out, which you can go watch on YouTube. I decided that I would grind all of it for a couple reasons. I didn't want to spend the time on 5 animals. I needed it done before any meat went bad, so I dropped it off at the processor. Grind is cheaper, so I had them turn the aoudad into sausage because I wanted to get that a little bit seasoned up. And then all the axis, I had them grind with a 10% beef fat. I had a whole bunch of elk with no fat mixed into it already ground, so I knew that I would have a variety of types of ground, and I figured that since axis is so delicious, I would kind of designate that as my burger meat.
Yeah.
So it had the extra fat content, so like the elk could be like for spaghettis and chilies and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. Axis must be really good if it's much better than elk, because it's like,
I'll give you some.
for me, elk is like so much better than just a
elk is
plain
amazing.
whitetail. Yeah.
Axis is just like, it's so just mild, good tasting. It's just you don't know that it's a wild animal.
Wow.
And to be honest, it probably isn't really that wild over there. To be honest,
Semi-wild.
eating off the corn feeder.
It's the Cheetos and the.
And Joel, you put some fat in your elk this year, I think. didn't you?
I mostly I did a few. I probably did 5 pounds of ground broken into pound vacuum seal bags with no fat, but most of it was 20-ish% beef fat, either beef or pork. It was a little mix of both.
I liked how you did your
And
ground
some of
this
them I
year.
seasoned
really?
prior
Interesting.
but prior to vacuum sealing, and some of them I left unseasoned. I got a couple of seasonings I like for like burgers or this or that.
Am I remembering correctly that you had your burger and you kind of froze it flat?
I do. I freeze.
Oh, that was pretty ingenious.
When I vacuum seal it, I put them. I sort of shape them all into a circle and then flatten it so that it thaws. I mean, I can
thaws
put
so
that in the
much
sink
better.
and it thaws in 15 minutes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
When it's
that's
flat
the way
like
do
that.
it
I don't know
on
where I
fit.
picked that up. Maybe from one of y'all, but
Wasn't me, but that's a great idea.
Not me. That's what I do with my fish. And that's like, versus in a giant chunk of ice, like is the old school way.
Yeah.
You know, you can thaw fish in 6 hours in the fridge like that.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's quite ingenious. That's something I need to pick up on, except I'm not, the vacuum sealing slows me down. I try to do like, I view vacuum sealing on like ducks and fish, but I'm using like, paper with like plastic around on all the red meat.
I
Except
do
the
the chub
tender
bags.
So speaking of ducks and ground, like when my dog was younger, I used to do a lot more bird hunting, and I've kind of transitioned more to big game hunting as she's gotten old and virtually useless. Have y'all ever taken the ducks and ground them?
I want to try that.
I had an intention to do that this year, and then
Yeah,
it was just like every
was a
time I
bad
came
year.
home, I had a duck or two, and it was like, I'm just going to put this in a bowl of ramen and eat it.
I think it was. I have never done it, but I got curious about it because, well, there was a couple hunts years ago where we kept seeing all these coots, and then you see a raft of coots come by, and you can get 15. And you're thinking like, who eats these? And I was talking to a guy I work with. He's from Louisiana, and he was like, I don't know, I don't eat them, but he sends me this. It was like a coot sausage. I was like, oh, well, you could definitely grind up a bunch of coots and make sausage, and for whatever reputation they get from people that have no idea one way or the other.
I bet they're fine.
I bet you, yeah.
I used to shoot a lot of them when Bryn was a puppy, just so she could have a chance to put more trees on her. They're not bad.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, but that was where I first started thinking about grinding up the birds. But then I think it was a interview that Jesse Griffiths did where he was talking about he'd take the whole duck, the liver, the heart,
Really?
the breast meat, the leg meat, and put it all in the grinder. And I think makes like
It's kind of like
a
boudin.
bolognese sauce.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Did you say you've tried it before, James?
Not ground, no.
Yeah.
No. I need to go more duck hunting. I haven't been. I went twice this year. No luck.
I didn't go much more.
Yeah. We were all discouraged, and then I'm always like checking with you guys about, well, was it any good?
Yeah, I kept banging my head against the wall every weekend.
You don't know unless you go.
That's right. You don't know if they're going to show up.
And
I think we had one barn burner hunt the entire season. Cody and I went out there and just, if we could hit the broadside of a barn, we'd have been done in 15 minutes. We had a 2-man limit of 15 minutes.
I think the teal opener was the only good hunt I had.
Yeah. So carrying on with ducks, and we'll not use this year as an example, but in prior years where you had a lot of success with ducks, any tips on how you guys are cooking them? And the reason I ask, I'll do duck breasts, and I feel like they're like a steak, and as like Hank Shaw likes to say, it's a steak with a bacon hat, right? So you're kind of you're cooking it, and you got to make sure that you get it kind of to a medium rare. Cook it too long, it's going to be bad. But I don't feel like I have much of a repertoire. You guys do anything adventurous with ducks that you could share?
No.
That's pretty much what I do.
Yeah.
I used to try different things.
Yeah.
I've tried duck chili one time. That didn't taste good at all. Just the meat.
What kind of ducks did you put in it? Did you put divers in it?
No, God, no.
Who shoots divers?
Desperate people who are not seeing any ducks. That's who.
No, it's just because like chili, you're cooking the meat so much.
Yeah.
It gets that flavor that
Yeah.
it doesn't taste great. So I've stuck with the breast seared,
Yep.
medium rare.
Yeah.
See, I think if you make a breast well done, they get that flavor.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But I think when you go into something like gumbo, you get past that.
Haven't
So
tried
like,
gumbo.
I keep all my legs, and I just toss them in a bag. And at the end of the year, at the end of the season, grab them all out, and maybe I'll smoke them after I'm done with the brisket or something like
Yep.
that, or maybe not. But they go into gumbo.
I've been
So you get these little teal legs, and you get
little
pick them
toothpicks.
off, and so I do that. But duck is like one of the hardest things I
agree.
cook.
I agree.
It's like a coin flip, honestly.
I want to do some confit,
Yeah.
with them, which if listeners don't know what that is, it's like, cooking it in its own oil, essentially, which I probably don't have enough wild duck fat. I have to buy.
It takes a lot. I've done it one time. It's
Yeah.
a pain in the butt. That was another one that Hank Shaw, you read his stuff and you're like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting there like cutting the tails off a teal.
Yep.
You're going, what am I doing with my time?
In a good year, though, they can have quite a bit. But,
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah.
it's hard to come by. I think you'll get more bear fat than duck fat, probably.
Yeah.
On the quantity.
Yeah, you're probably
I
better
wonder
off
if
with fresh
lard, like pork lard, would work for that pretty
Yeah.
good. I'm
I
sure
think
it
so.
would work.
I think it's any oil would be fine,
Yeah.
any grease or something like that.
But I think you got to render it yourself.
No, really.
Well, like the stuff that you buy at the grocery store is just different. It's shelf stable more than fresh lard.
Makes
okay.
sense.
Yeah, there's a reason why it comes.
If
with a
Judson
brick
says
like
it, I
that.
believe it.
So what you're saying is we need to go catch a baby hog, castrate it, raise it in the backyard off of food scraps from my cafeteria at work.
You could,
Perfect.
or you could just like get pork.
Do you
from the
have an
grocery
HOA?
store.
Hey, what the HOA doesn't doesn't hurt them.
Yeah,
Oh, but they'll smell it. So
That's true.
I want to try. Jesse Griffith has a recipe where it's like teal in a jar,
okay.
and you cook it. And I've been wanting to do that, and so I actually have some teal left over from last season that I'm really pining to do, like in a little pint jar.
It's a whole bird.
You've plucked him and gut him and everything, and so it's legs and wings and everything, because it's a small bird. You put it in there with like some beans and some other things like that, and it'd make a great presentation for a wild game dinner, I think.
Is this where the bones like kind of dissolve and stuff in?
No. I'm trying to think which. It's in his book of field. It's in there.
I don't do whole birds anymore.
No.
No.
I've done it one time. I have an old friend who had a recipe for a whole plucked teal in the oven, and it was amazing. But I am not in a season of my life where I'm plucking birds and keeping them whole and pulling all the guts out and everything. I'm just pull those feathers out, cut that meat off. That's just,
It's a lot of work just to get the breasts nice and clean.
Yeah.
When you got to start worrying about the back and
Yeah.
all these other
Yeah.
parts that you're not going to eat.
Around the wings and all that.
Yeah,
It's a
the
little
wings.
difficult.
the situation that occurred when I had those nice, fully plucked, perfect teal was a guided hunt that I went on. It's like the only successful guided hunt I've ever been on.
It's not like it used to be where there was a guy that would pluck your birds too.
Right.
Like maybe there's still a couple of those guys around in Southeast Texas, but I don't know where they are.
Yeah, not in the places that we hunt, unfortunately.
Well, if we got into good duck hunting again, I think we ought to like communally put into buy a plucker. Have you seen some videos on those pluckers? Those things with the rubber, they look pretty substantial.
I've got 3 kids. That's my.
That's your
pluckers.
plucker.
I'll toss mine in there. I think we should just plan a trip down south or up to Canada.
Yeah,
So I think just get a whole pile of birds and test out all kinds of different things.
yeah. Lots of raw material for future experiments. Well, let's talk a little about several of us have gotten elk. I find elk meat to be a lot, I think, milder, as we're talking about that, than deer. And so, I tend to try to use that in applications where you get more of the true taste versus like a chili or something. Have you guys seen that as you've tried to do your own recipes? Or you just all taste the same?
I have found that elk, I can feed in any recipe that I've ever made with an elk, steak, roast, ground, whatever. The people that I feed that to, as long as I have done my job correctly,
Yeah.
which is important, don't overcook it, they rave about how great
Yeah.
elk meat is.
Yeah.
Where, like, my wife won't eat duck.
Is that right?
I can't pay her to eat some duck.
Yeah.
Now, luckily, the 18-month-old and the 3-year-old,
They don't know any
They don't know any better, so
Yeah.
we're just like,
I'm scared to have my wife eat the duck because I'm afraid I'm gonna have to pay for dental work because I'm worried she's gonna bite down.
Yeah, be
on
careful
on a
about
steel pellet. And you might, if I don't shoot steel pellets, but I hunt with people that do. And one of our mutual friends likes to shoot a lot at every bird that comes by, and always use steel.
It's always nice when you're breasting out your ducks and you find that copper-plated bismuth in
Yeah.
there and you say, that was mine.
Yeah,
I got that one.
Yeah,
It's going to be
that's,
chewy when you hit that pellet.
yeah.
That steel pellet will turn a lot of people off.
Yeah.
That was a big thing early on
Yeah.
when I got married. And so we started doing a lot of preparations where, like, Philly cheesesteaks is one that
Yeah.
the whole family likes.
Yep.
Because we'll slice it real thin. And you have an opportunity to catch any pellets as you go through it. And it helps because it doesn't. Like, if I get 6 birds, there's a pellet running around somewhere that I
in
cannot
there.
find.
Yeah.
So,
Though at that wild game dinner I did, one of my guests caught a pellet not from duck, but it was from rabbit. And Judson and his wife were the only ones there that had ever like hunted or fished. Everyone else was like virgin to wild game.
At least that one was lead.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
Pros and cons.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to make sure at the squirrel hunt we're going to, nobody's shooting steel.
Yeah.
They can stop being little bitches and just bring their 22s. Headshots only.
Well, they just generally aren't sitting still when I'm shooting at them is my problem.
You gotta make them stop.
You gotta, they're generally on the go.
Just go. Like, oh,
That's what you use the grunt for.
stop.
Any comments on elk for you guys?
I find it's like the best introductory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like Joel was saying, you can do anything, steak,
Yeah.
drown, like anything. It just tastes great.
Yeah.
So good.
I don't have that much experience with elk. I've never gotten one of my own, so
Yeah.
it's tasty. Yeah.
It is nice.
Did you apply for Arizona this year?
No,
Oh, why did you miss the date?
I forgot.
How? You know, it would be
Because
really.
Chris texts me 3 days early instead of the night of.
I thought about texting you the day of, and I thought they're going to be like, "Will you leave me alone? I'm a grown man. I can figure it out."
Nope.
Apparently, you need
Guy at work told me on the 5th, today's the day. And I said, no, it's tomorrow. He goes, no, but I just don't like waiting until the last minute because I'll forget. He
Yeah.
said, I won't.
So, did you guys apply? You did.
I just got a point.
Yeah, me too.
I just got my point.
James.
I applied. I had planned on just doing another cow hunt, but I'm going to be really busy during that time. So I
Yeah.
just applied for like really, really hard to draw archery hunts.
Yeah.
If I get drawn, then
Yeah.
I'll take the day time off. No
Yeah.
problem.
It pained me just to put a point in. Oh, I was like, I really want to do one of these hunts, but the schedule's not going to work.
I don't think I'm actually going to apply in Arizona until I'm at 10.
Oh, you mean like really
10
pick
points.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not far off, probably.
Because when I'm at 10, which will be another 4 years, I think, 4 or 5 years, you know, by that time, I mean, the premium units are just going to continue to get exponentially harder to get. So I'll never get one of those unless it's random.
There's a random
But
application.
with 10, I'm certain that I could get like a good, you know, like not one of the amazing elk units,
primo.
but one of the good ones.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I'm so opposite of that.
Well, it's because you're the luckiest man alive. You know?
No, I honestly, I don't care about gaining points there. I told Judson, like, every other year when I have that available week, I apply for the cow hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you've done well. Yeah. That's a good one to do.
It's just, who knows what's going to happen in the future with points in these states. Honestly, what I would like to see is all states just go to a random draw.
I would
Screw
too.
everyone's points. Everyone bitch about it and moan for a year or two and then get over it and just go to random draws.
The convenient thing that I do like, I like New Mexico, Idaho, because, you know, you starting year 1 or year 10, you're in the same place as everybody else. Because we got to think about the generations that are coming behind us, right? Of, you know, they show up and they're not going to be able to hunt because everybody else has 25 points or something crazy like that. But I do like the predictability. I do like the fact that, okay, I know that I have in the range of like 3 to 4 points at a given state, and I've got good likelihood. You know what I mean? So actually, I like the fact that all the states are a little bit different, and you can kind of approach them differently. But your point is well taken. Is there's a reckoning at some point on some of these states because they're just out of whack.
Yeah, it'll happen, I think, in the next 10 years.
Yeah,
Something crazy. But we'll see.
yeah.
Otherwise, I'll just be eating cows. It's just totally fine with me.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
I think all of us are in the same boat. Is we just want to go, right? Is, you know, none of us are sitting there like, oh, I can only go if it's only a 350 inch, you know, elk or 200 inch mule deer or something like that.
I mean, you saw my little bull back there. I don't know.
It's bigger than my bull, so
No bull is too small for me.
I think spikes are tasty myself, you know. So
Well, they're legal. They're legal.
exactly. So what's your favorite wild game dish?
Yeah, I could probably narrow it down to 2 or 3. I don't know what my favorite is, but I'll tell you the one that is a crowd favorite that is easy to do and delicious is like a Mississippi pot roast.
That is good.
I have done that with an elk roast. I've done that with venison. I've done it with a pig shoulder. And no matter how you make it, it is.
Those are tasty.
And you could just tell people it's wild game, and not tell them what type of wild game. You can do with some bobcat or a wolf or whatever the case may be.
So that's a bold.
Maybe not a wolf.
Yeah, I was about to say going out on a wolf is bold.
That's kind of
A little chewy, greasy.
extreme.
I don't know.
We don't know yet, do we?
We
Yeah,
don't.
We talked about it while we were
could.
in Idaho,
Yeah,
thinking if we get a wolf, we're gonna have some tonight.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Or javelina. So you just Mississippi pot roast.
Can't go wrong.
My favorite thing to do with a backstrap, especially a venison backstrap, because most of the time, if I have elk backstrap, I'm not doing anything but just putting a rub on it and cooking it.
Very simple.
I will like butterfly the backstrap and then core out some serrano peppers and stuff those with cream cheese
That's good, yeah.
and line those peppers down the middle.
Yeah.
And then wrap it up, and I mean you can leave it just like that and just wrap it up with some butcher string, or you can crisp, put some bacon around the outside. And I mean, I've eaten an entire backstrap that way before by myself and just slumped over on the couch with the meat sweats.
What about our adventurous eaters over here? What's your favorite?
I don't cook a lot of I don't cook a lot of recipes.
That
We
doesn't
kind of
shock
use
me.
it. We use it in all the same places as anything else we'd make.
Yeah.
So chili or take top round is great. You split it in half and make fajitas with it, stuff like that. But always some sort of tacos. Carne asada works really good.
Yeah.
But it's all the same stuff that if it was a hunk of beef roast or
Yeah.
a whitetail roast, we use them kind of about the same way.
Okay.
This is going to be controversial.
We're all leaning in at this point.
Proceed.
First of all, the pussy pot pie I made today was pretty good.
It was really good.
Bobcat.
It was really good.
So I love trying like different recipes. So I really enjoy doing it. But like I'll try like different Middle Eastern recipes using whatever kind of meat. I've done asabuca, whatever. I've done everything. Nothing beats just plain steak with salt and pepper.
Yeah.
Or
Simple.
a burger. I love it. Like, you can't go wrong with it. It's easy.
Yep.
It's just so simple, and you get to taste the meat. It's not all disguised under sauces and whatnot. And just when it's done right, that's my favorite, man.
Yeah,
Just
there's
a
something to be
steak or
said for
burger.
that. It's like, some kind of like you were saying, some of these things you put them in and you really kind of lose what the flavor of the meat is.
Yeah.
It's just a protein, and it's a carrier for whatever your kind of ingredient.
Which is fine.
It is what it is, right? But I think what you're saying, and I agree with that. On a burger, you're getting the real taste of that animal, and there's differences. Like a whitetail versus an elk versus an antelope. There's the finer points are different on those animals. And I think as an outdoors person, you start to appreciate those things after a little bit of time of hunting and fishing and cooking wild game. So it's something you aspire to. I think that you get there, because I know my early days my cooking sucked, and I did a lot of chili, and I overcooked everything. So
I think that's a common mistake for people when they start cooking. But I'll tell you what, like as much as I just like the simple things, I do enjoy watching you cook, man. It's like, all right, what's going on today? What kind of spice is going in this one?
I'm always looking for something. My wife keeps it real for me, because she'll tell me, she's like, "You're doing the same thing too much."
Really?
She's like, "You need
One
to
more enchilada.
expand your repertoire."
Yeah, see, we do same thing, but it's me that's saying that.
Yeah.
Like, all right, look, I'm tired of this chicken and rice casserole. Like, we're gonna mix it up.
But there are
Use Bobcat.
speaking of things I put on Instagram, we all have a common friend, Travis Pruitt, and he hates the fact that I put olives in my enchiladas.
Really?
And I get a hate Instagram DM from him every time. But now it's turned into kind of poking fun. Like if I didn't put them in something else, he'll be like, "Were you out of olives?" So
I'm pro olive.
yeah, I am too. But he's like, "It's not Mexican." I'm like, I don't care. It's still good.
Yeah, I'm with him.
Yeah.
I like olives, but
It doesn't
keep them out of
belong.
my enchiladas.
I don't want the olives. I don't like the texture.
Okay.
The texture. Ugh.
Speaking of Instagram food pictures, and I hope you don't mind me asking you, Joel, but you've got some preparation you've done with redfish that I need to ask about, and maybe I misinterpreted what it was, but it looked like you cut the redfish into little pieces.
I did. Yeah.
And cut it up, and I got to be honest, when I saw that, I was out loud. What the hell did he do to that? So, what is that?
So one of my favorite ways for redfish is to fillet it and then slice it into cubes.
Yeah.
And season it up. I have I don't know can't remember off the top of my head what the name of the seasoning is, but some like sort of Cajun-y, spicy seasoning. Toss that in a bowl and just sort of mix it up, saute it in a pan with some olive oil or butter, and it is. Put that over some rice.
Where did you learn that?
I don't know. I just came up with it one day. I found the seasoning first, and I thought that sounds really good. And I tried it once, sort of on the half shell, just cook it with the skin on.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, that's pretty good. But then, so I kind of wanted to get it really.
You want more surface area.
I wanted more surface area for that seasoning, and so I cubed it up one time, and now that's almost the only way that I eat redfish.
Wow.
Looks very intriguing.
Oh, it sounds really good.
Yeah, but it looks really odd when it looks like he's sauteing a pan of risotto or something. It's like, or a wok, how they kind of do that shake,
Yeah.
He's in there going, shh. So, but no, it's very unique.
It is delicious.
I think
go
you've
back
done
and look
that
at
with
that.
some elk too, haven't you? I thought I saw you did it with red meat, or maybe it was deer.
I have one of the sort of breakfast things that I'll do with either venison or elk or whatever is just, cut it up into little cutlets.
Yeah.
Throw the rub on it, season it however I'm going to do it, and then throw it into a cast iron skillet and just,
Whip it out.
stir it around until it's, give it 60 seconds or 90 seconds or whatever. And
Yeah. Well, I'm sure this hasn't happened to any of y'all because this only happened to me. But you guys got any food disaster stories?
Oh, God. Yeah. I was raving about just how good deer stew is because it's like great, right? And I had some friends that I used to hang out with a lot before they turned really terrible human beings. No, I won't name them. But I made some deer stew, and I tasted it before I gave it to them. Thankfully, I don't know what happened. I honestly have no idea if it was like a bad piece of meat or what, but it tasted. I've never have had any wild game that tasted so terrible in my life. So bad, I threw it all away.
Oh my goodness!
Like honestly, I don't know what it was. Like I don't know if I put the whole like bladder of the deer in there. I don't know. And I'm usually very, very, very good about not having things like that happen. So I don't know what happened, but it tasted so bad. And yeah, I think we ordered pizza that night.
The emergency Caesars.
Oh God.
Emergency Caesars. I tried to do like a bourbon cream sauce, and we didn't have any cream, so I used whole milk, and it just went downhill from there. Yeah, that's the one that like just still sticks out in my head. That was probably 15 years ago.
I've had a handful of times where just overcooking, wild game, you overcook it and it's not great. It's like chewing on a tire.
Yeah.
But I will say the worst disaster I've had is being gifted an
that
entire
was bad.
rear axis quarter and putting it in the bed of my truck in a trash bag to transport home, and then pulled into the driveway and just walked inside to do bedtime and realized the mistake, the cardinal sin I had made the next morning when I came out, and wasted an entire rear quarter. So probably won't get another gift like that.
No. That
Not
was
like that, but I'll give you a package of ground before you leave.
so. The context there, we were all at a BHA meeting, a pint night as they call them, and James, as he is so lucky, had gotten on a fantastic Texas drawn hunt. And how many animals did you get in that hunt? It was like
4 axis and an aoudad.
oh, and so his cup runneth over, and he was gifting out to friends some pieces of meat, and gave to Joel a prime quarter, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Oh, hind quarter.
Yep.
So when you
quarter.
texted that just made me go, oh my god, it's so bad. I felt so bad for you too.
Yeah, I texted him first just to apologize.
Yeah.
Profusely for wasting it.
It's very inconsistent with your overall personality. So we all know that was just
Yeah, I mean, if
you got a lot
I
going
thought
on.
that's the kind of person you were, like, normally, I would never have even given you anything. So
I would have taken that one to the grave.
I think you're probably pretty wise there, but yeah, you've got a lot going on in your life with the small children. So I think we'll all cut you some slack on that one.
I was lucky enough to make a trip there with my daughter this year, and we weren't as successful, but this man is still legendary
Yeah.
at the park. So
they know me.
they know him. Yeah.
She actually texted me, the ranger. She texted
Did she really?
She's like, I got a guy here who knows you.
How funny.
They put him in a good spot.
James is always networking. Man. No,
Always be closing, boy. ABC.
Glengarry and Cross. Not very nice. Well, I'm kind of wrapping up here on closing on an hour. I really enjoyed the discussion. Any kind of final thoughts? Anything you want to throw out there? Something we didn't touch on, maybe that you're like, I need to share this cooking wisdom, perhaps, amongst the minds we have here.
Try something different. Don't be afraid. Try something different. Like, a lot of people just get stuck in their comfort zones.
Yeah.
Open a cookbook up. Just
Yep.
Google recipe for beef or recipe for chicken.
Yeah.
And just see what happens and just trade out the meat.
I think you're absolutely right. As people get hung up on it, well, it has to be a elk recipe or a deer recipe. It just needs to be a recipe, and a lot of the protein is kind of transferable. Just know that it's lean, right?
Lean. Don't cook it as much. And
Yeah.
good to go. Well, unless it's bear. But yeah.
Yeah, if it's bear or pig or bobcat,
Cook it to death.
yeah, just make sure you hit USDA guidelines around trichinosis and toxoplasmosis and all that.
Even exceed those a little bit.
Yeah, you never know if your dial is right. Right?
Exactly.
Judson, I have high hopes you're going to give me something quite great because you're.
Well, like, man, where could you go? I think for me, it's worth it to put a little extra time into it.
Yeah.
So, like, I do I make my own stock with bones.
Yeah.
And, like, if you're making a soup,
Yeah.
like it's a huge difference between using like just water
Yeah.
or a bouillon cube or some stuff that's out of the box. It's just completely different. Or like not so much wild animals, but like if I'm making a brisket, I get 4 pounds of trim off of it. And a lot of times I like running that through the grinder and then
That's a good
rendering
idea.
out all the fat. And then that is just great to cook with. And so those little things they can be a lot of extra work sometimes,
Yeah.
but they do make such an impact
Yeah.
versus just kind of the shortcuts that are there to make your life easy, and there's nothing wrong with them at all. But when you can kind of get those extra flavors from some of those steps, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that in terms of preparation or cooking, I would say I spend a lot of time on the processing part, making sure that I have protected the meat. Because there's been times that I didn't in the past, early on mostly, where, if it sits in the freezer for 6 months or a year and you didn't get the vacuum right,
Yeah.
and it's got a little freezer burn on it, a little rind once you thaw it out, just like over preparing in the processing portion so that regardless of how long it takes you to get it out of the freezer to eat it, it's when it thaws out, it's
That's good advice.
It is.
still good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're spot on.
Whatever your processing looks like,
Yeah.
you like to do butcher paper and this and
Yeah.
that, and I vacuum seal everything.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, making sure that your steps are all thorough and taken care of, so it can stay in there and still be good when you pull it out, even if it's that 4-year-old steak that fell down into the bottom box and you
happens.
just forgot it was there.
It happens. I mean, when I find those, some of those are like, oh my God, I didn't know I had this. I'm so excited about it, you know?
I'm still clinging on to my last piece of antelope kielbasa from 2017.
I haven't come across anything that I'm just like age-wise that I'm like, oh my God, that's too old. You know, if it was sealed up well.
If it was sealed, yeah.
Yeah.
I had some old kingfish that I found.
Fish
Some
is a
kingfish
little
steaks,
different.
and I was
Yeah.
like, these might have to go to the dog.
There is a little shrinkage from time to time. So, yeah, I think they're good bits of advice. You know, I think the only thing I'd add to it is I like where James's head is just go do it. You know, and it doesn't have to be a detailed, like over the top recipe. You know, get your feet wet and try something, and utilize what you got. I think one of the things that I worry about people doing is making it so special that you know it's like this thing that never happens, right?
Yeah,
And so
I'll do that.
We're kind of getting into a psychotherapy session, I think, with James and him needing to hold on to things. But, you know, this has been a great discussion. I really appreciate you guys. James, again, thank you for having us in your home and cooking a really delicious Bobcat shepherd's pie. And it's not something that, you know, as I started 2024, did I think I was going to be eating Bobcat. But it was really good. And
Opened your world, Chris.
I know it. I know it. Opened my eyes. So hope everybody enjoyed the discussion, and I hope that you guys had a good time, and maybe you come back on and we have another discussion later in the year. Maybe we could make this a periodic thing throughout the years of sage advice. So, but I've got to come up with a name for the group, though. I haven't come up with that yet.
To be decided.
To be decided. All right. Thought I was going to have to bleep one of you guys when we were doing that. So with that, we're signing off. Thank you, everybody. Hope you guys will utilize this information to be a better wild game cook. And just thanks. Good night. Good luck.